I came from Hollywood, and that wasn't Henry's upbringing. And even with Happy Days, even with the broad comedy that we were going for, he was looking for those other values.
When Happy Days first hit television, Ron Howard was the golden boy of the show. He was the heart, the charm, and the clean-cut face audiences instantly trusted. But behind the perfect smiles, in 1950s nostalgia, something changed. Fame was no longer enough. The set that once felt like home started to feel like a cage. And the role that made him beloved began to box him in. So, what exactly happened that pushed Ron Howard, the show's most wholesome star, to walk away from one of the biggest hits on TV? Stick around, because the truth behind his sudden exit is far more complicated than anyone realized. The boy who grew up on screen before he became the man calling the shots behind the camera, the director behind Apollo 13, a beautiful mind in the Da Vinci Code, Ron Howard was simply America's favorite redhead. That familiar grin, that soft-spoken charm. He wasn't just an actor. He was part of America's living room. From the small-town simplicity of the Andy Griffith Show to the jukebox glow of Happy Days, Ron didn't just play in the limelight. He grew up in it. But when fame comes knocking before you even lose your baby teeth, it doesn't just mold your life, it rewires it. Ronald William Howard entered the world on March 1, 1954 in Duncan, Oklahoma. He was the firstborn son of Rance Howard and Jean Spiegel, both dreamers with Hollywood in their blood. Acting wasn't something Ron stumbled into. It was practically inherited. His father, Rance, wasn't just an actor, but a director and writer. The kind of man who understood the grind. His mother, Jean, lit up the screen in her own right, balancing artistry with motherhood. The Howards weren't just raising a child. They were building a legacy. And interestingly, even their last name had its own story. Rance was born with the surname Becken Holt. But like so many hopeful performers in the golden age of television, he reinvented himself. Howard became his stage name in 1948. Simple, memorable, and destined to appear in lights. At the time of Ron's birth, Rance was serving 3 years in the U.S. Air Force. That meant discipline and duty surrounded Ron before he even learned to walk. Qualities that would quietly follow him into Hollywood. Now, while other kids were learning to ride bikes or getting dirt under their nails, Ron was learning camera angles and cue marks. He was tutored right there at Daisalu Studios, the same place where I Love Lucy made television magic. Juggling lines and lessons between takes. But his parents made sure he didn't miss out on normal life entirely. Whenever he wasn't on set, he went to regular schools in Burbank, Robert Louis Stevenson Elementary, David Starr, Jordan Junior High, and later John Burroughs High School, where he graduated like any other teen, except of course with half of America already knowing his face. But even then, his ambitions were already shifting. Acting was what the world saw. But directing, that was where his heart started to wander. The spark came early, fueled by the behind-the-scenes life he saw every day. Watching his father and the crew move like invisible architects around a story made something click for Young Ron. He once reflected that he knew almost instinctively that storytelling from the director's chair might be his real calling. After high school, he enrolled at the University of Southern California's prestigious School of Cinematic Arts. For many, that's the dream destination. For Ron, it was just another chapter. He didn't graduate, but in Hollywood, diplomas don't make directors. Vision does, and Ron had plenty of that. Before Happy Days ever came calling, Ron was already racking up credits most actors twice his age would envy. His first official film role came in 1959's The Journey. From there, he started popping up everywhere on TV. He appeared in The DuPont Show with June Allison in an episode titled Child Lost. And even in The Twilight Zone. Yes, that Twilight Zone. In an episode called Walking Distance, he showed up on Dennis the Menace as Stewart, one of Dennis's buddies, and had guest spots on the many loves of Dobie Gillis and Cheyenne. It was a parade of guest roles and one-liners. But for Ron, each one was another lesson. Every director, every set, and every script added something to his growing understanding of how stories work. Not just how to say the lines, but how to build the world those lines belong to. By the time most kids his age were just figuring out what they wanted to do in life, Ron Howard was already living it. But as much as the camera loved him, he was already starting to see beyond the frame. Because for Ron, the magic wasn't just in being seen. It was in creating what people see. So, while the world saw a fresh-faced kid with a wholesome smile, what they didn't see was the filmmaker slowly waking up inside him. The boy who would grow into one of the most respected storytellers in Hollywood history. From sitcom star to Hollywood visionary. Before Ron Howard was shouting action behind the camera, he was that wide-eyed, freckled kid stealing America's heart as Opie Taylor on The Andy Griffith Show. In 1960, at just 5 years old, he joined the cast, credited as Ronnie Howard, playing Andy Griffith's on-screen son. For 8 full seasons, audiences watched him grow up in Mayberry, a town that seemed frozen in time, where life was simple. The lessons were gentle and family came first. It was television comfort food. And Ron was right in the middle of it. But behind that innocent smile was a little boy learning how storytelling really worked. He once recalled his very first scene holding a toy turtle that he had to pretend was real and dead. He remembered Andy Griffith calmly talking him through it, showing him how to make the moment feel real. For a 5-year-old, that kind of attention wasn't just direction, it was mentorship. Ron later said that from that day, he didn't just learn to act. He learned what it meant to guide a story. The Andy Griffith Show became an American classic. Warm, wholesome, and timeless. Even though it aired during the 1960s, it felt like a love letter to a simpler era. Alongside stars like Don Knotts, Francis Bavier, and Jim Nabors, Ron became the nation's favorite kid. And when the show ended after 8 seasons, he wasn't just another child actor. He was part of television history. But as the 60s faded, Ron was ready for something new. He found it in a small anthology segment called Love in the Television Set, which later got retitled Love and the Happy Days. That one-off role led to the opportunity that would define his young adult years, Happy Days. In 1974, Ron became Richie Cunningham, the all-American boy next door. Clean-cut, polite, endlessly optimistic. Richie was the kind of guy your parents wanted you to marry, and the total opposite of his leather jacket-wearing best friend, Fonza, played by Henry Winkler. Together, they created one of television's most iconic duos, Richie the Heart and Fans the Cool. And that chemistry wasn't just for the cameras. Off-screen, Ron and Henry built a real friendship that would last decades. But as Happy Days grew into a full-blown pop culture phenomenon, Ron started to feel the itch. He still loved acting, the energy, the laughter, and the connection with fans, but something deeper was calling him. That same spark that first lit up on the Andy Griffith Show was now pushing him toward the director's chair. He wanted more than just to perform stories. He wanted to mold them. Yet, behind the easy smiles and studio lights, there was something else stirring, something he didn't talk about publicly. It wasn't just creative ambition driving him anymore. There were other undercurrents that made staying harder than walking away. So, after years of being America's favorite face, on Thursday nights, Ron Howard did something no one saw coming. He left the show that made him a star. And though everyone thought they knew the reason, the truth ran deeper than anyone realized. So what was the real reason why Ron Howard left Happy Days? Keep watching to find out. In 1977, Ron Howard made his directing debut with Grand Theft Auto, a low-budget action comedy he co-wrote with his father, Rance. The film was part of a deal with Roger Corman, a legendary producer known for giving young filmmakers a shot on one condition: Ron had to star in Eat My Dust first. He did, and Corman kept his word. That single opportunity launched one of Hollywood's most impressive directing careers. From there, Ron started climbing fast, directing TV movies, including Skyward with Pete Davis, before landing his first major studio film in 1982, Night Shift. The movie starred Shelley Long, Michael Keaton, and fittingly his old Happy Days pal, Henry Winkler. It was clever, funny, and full of heart. Everything that would later define a Ron Howard film. The 1990s only solidified his place among Hollywood's best. From the fiery tension of Backdraft to the sweeping romance of Far and Away in the newsroom chaos of The Paper, Ron showed that he could handle any genre and still find the emotion at the center of it all. He had gone from the little boy pretending to cry over a toy turtle to a filmmaker who could make audiences feel something real. The Quiet Storm controversies you never heard about. Ron Howard has long been known as one of Hollywood's good guys. He was the red-haired kid who grew up to be one of the most respected filmmakers in the world. He's got that calm energy, that gentle way of speaking, and a track record that screams professionalism. No scandals, no ego explosions, no messy headlines. In a town that thrives on chaos, Ron Howard somehow stayed clean. But that doesn't mean his career has been completely free of storms. In fact, beneath that calm Exterior, there have been moments, rare but real, that tested his image and his instincts. From creative clashes to moral outrage, Howard's journey hasn't just been about success. It's also been about navigating the kind of controversies that could shake even the most grounded reputations. Let's rewind for a second. Ron Howard has been in this business since before most people learned to read. He made his screen debut at the age of 2 and never really stopped working. From the Andy Griffith Show to Happy Days, he became a familiar, comforting face on television. The kind of actor audiences trusted. When he stepped behind the camera, that same trust followed him. Studios saw him as reliable. Actors loved him. Critics respected him. He was considered one of the safest hands in Hollywood. And for decades, that reputation held. He made great movies, a few average ones, and yes, even one or two that didn't quite hit the mark. But one project in particular broke that peaceful streak wide open. That project was the Da Vinci Code. When Dan Brown's novel exploded in 2003, it became a global phenomenon. It was controversial on paper. So when Ron Howard signed on to direct the big screen adaptation with Tom Hanks as the lead, people were immediately curious. And not all in a good way. The plot revolved around a murder inside the Louvre and a centuries-old conspiracy that hinted at secrets buried deep within the foundations of Christianity. To some,